Have you ever heard about Little Review?
In Scott.
I'm sorry. Because I wanted to be first. I wanted to be first. Um, I'm not objective here because it's absolutely amazing. And I love that story. And I love that experiment because it was an experiment. Let me start from significant numbers. 3 numbers. 1, 13, and 50,000. Why? 1, because that's only one example. It's only one newspaper like this all over the world. Whenever, wherever and whatever you want. Only one. Unique. Absolutely unique. 1, because there is only one book about it. Only in Polish. Published last year. And the title is The Great Little Review. The one also because the whole history of the Little Review is between 2 ones. The first one is the first day of the Jewish New Year, 5687. It was 9th October of 1926. And it was the first day of the Jewish New Year. And the last one is the 1st September of the 1939 and the first day of the Second World War. It was Friday. That's why 1. 13, because that story between ones lasted almost 13 years. Almost, because we needed only 13 days to the next first day of the Jewish New Year, 5,700. Could you imagine it? And 50,000, because that was the number of copies of the Little Review, or rather our review, because a Little Review was a supplement to the newspaper Our Review. What was the main idea? This newspaper. The main idea, the most important was that readers and writers, contributors are still changing. Yes, I'm a reader and contributor at the same time. So children and youth write. Editorial board chooses, publishes, comments, awards, and so many things. And they did many things, many interventions or something like that. Yes, someone wrote, for example, we know an anecdote about the Polish name Roman, but it sounds like Roman from Latin. And Roman wrote the letter that my uncle told me that when I have a good notes, he'll buy me a bicycle. And I had, and he didn't buy me a bicycle. So in the next issue of the Little Review, yes, was an article, "Uncle, please buy the bicycle, because you promised." Yeah, that was a little intervention, but there were also more important interventions. Next thing, yeah, flowers, because Korczak wrote that in the Little Review, okay, Korczak was editor-in-chief between 1926 and 1930, and he was an inventor and he was an author of that initiative. And he described his role as a florist. Florist, because children's and youth's texts were like flowers, and he was like florists who made from these flowers bouquet of flowers. That's the metaphor which I think is a very good expression of the idea of the little review. The second thing, adults' engagement was very limited, just like in the orphan's home. Yeah? Could you imagine that at the beginning of the little review, I mean between 26 and 27, there were only two people which were involved in this initiative. It was Korczak, and the second, it was rather, he wasn't a teenager, but a young man, Yerachmiel Weingarten. And the interesting is that Weingarten was here in Canada because he was rescued during the Second World War, and he was in Canada. But next, he traveled to U.S. However, their engagement was very limited, and Korczak's idea fix, but it became a reality. That in that newspaper, they want to avoid the fiction and stress the real experiences, informations, opinions, thoughts, and many, many other things, but not poems, not stories, fictional stories, yes, just rather, because there were some exceptions, however, it was rather a newspaper about the real life, and also connecting with the only one newspaper wherever and whenever. I have that's my translations from that book, The Great Little Review, which was written by Polish prof of one of the universities in Warsaw, and she's a sociologist, and she's specialist in the area of newspapers, especially pre-war newspapers. And she wrote that Little Review is only one so extensive source which shows us the life of children in Poland between the two world wars, if not whenever and wherever, which was seen through the eyes of children, not psychologists, pedagogues, teachers, and scientists. So probably that's only one source. And we are lucky because almost all copies, all issues of the Little Review survived, and we can read it. I'll give you handouts, and you'll find there two links. One is to Polish digital library with 674 copies of the Little Review, and the second to English translations, 30 or almost 30 on the website of the what? Janusz Korczak Association of Canada, of course. So you can read it in English or of course in Polish. So that's why you can speak and learn Polish. But that's the great and amazing landscape of the reality between 1926 and 39. Next thing, the source of this idea, the source of this experiment was the newspaper in the orphan's home. But it's not the same. Very often I can hear from experts maybe, and it's just a mistake, yes, to unify it, because they are convinced that Little Review was the newspaper in the orphan's home. No, two separate newspapers. Okay, is it clear for you? This is the main idea, yeah? The second thing, the context. Context was, editor's office was in the Nowolipki street. That was almost the heart of the Jewish district in Warsaw. Almost. And that was, of course, editor's office of our review, because Little Review was as you know, Friday supplement to our review, the largest Polish language newspaper for Jewish people. But also Polish people read this newspaper. Next thing, 50, 40,000 copies, it's not clear, and it was changing, of course. And because of Leader Review, we know that the number of these copies was higher from time to time, or maybe often. Next thing, how many pages? Between 2 and 6. No less than 2, no more than 6, average 4. Yeah. Next thing, almost no predecessors and no successors. Of course, there were many tiny initiatives and attempts which lasted, I don't know, a few issues, a year, not so big ideas, but in this, at this scale, Leader Review was only one. What is interesting, and we know it just from Leader Review, there was a Hebrew Hehaver Hayomi, Daily Friend or something like this, at the beginning of the 20th century in Vilnius. And the next thing, in August 1930, Korczak was replaced by Igor Neverly. He used, before the Second World War, Igor Neverly rather used the name Jerzy, like Jerzy, Jerry, Abramov. It's complicated, but he became a rather famous Polish writer after the Second World War. And Igor Neverly wasn't a Jew. It's complicated who he was, but he wasn't a Jew. Okay, that's the building, and on this building and on the wall there is, what does it in English? Just, yeah, plaque with commemoration of Leader Review. The funny is that's the headquarter of the Warsaw police something. Yes, that's the headquarter of police. Excuse me?
The police?
Yes, the police. Yeah. Okay. The great success of the Leader Review. I can tell you many things, but I'd like to tell you only one thing. In Leader Review, there were like statuses of contributors. When you write one letter, you was contributor, of course, yes. But if you write, for example, I don't know, 5 letters, you're more important than the previous one. And if you write 10 letters, you're something like a permanent contributor. Average 10 letters per a year, of course, yeah. However, why not in a week, yes. And now, could you imagine, we have, there's a special chart or graph. We have 1929. It means that Leader Review has 3 years. Could you imagine and guess how many permanent contributors had Leader Review in this year? How many, in the other words, how many children wrote to Leader Review 10 times per a year or more? Please guess. I love this moment. 100? 100, okay.
1,000.
1,000, thank you. But I'm still waiting.
2,000?
Excuse me?
2,000?
2,000, I'm still waiting.
50,000.
Thank you, but no, it's the number of copies. Could you imagine that there were 3,200 children? 3,200. It's unbelievable. Yeah? Unbelievable. Here you have 3,200. I'm cheating a little because that's the higher number in the whole history of the Louis Review. Later, there were less than 3,200. However, in 1929, it's incredible. So it was a great success, and that success wasn't be possible without a special motivational system. The first feature was that each author, each, it means really each, could see his or her name in that newspaper, regardless what he or she published. We know the anecdote. There is maybe only one contributor and Polish writer who is still alive, Józef Joseph Henn, born in 1923, still alive, and he has an anecdote. He published something in a Louis Review, and colleagues saw it. They were very jealous and told him, okay, Józef, do the same with us. And he told them, no, it's impossible. You have to write by yourself and send, and you can see your names or initials or anything in the Louis Review. And they told him, it's impossible because I can't write. It's too difficult for me. But I have an idea, Józef. You can give me your text, I'll copy it, and I'll send it. And they did it. So they copied Józef's text, they sent to Louis Review, and really they saw their names in the Louis Review. Of course, no one published that text because it was Henn's text. However, it was really important. And here you can see that part of that newspaper. That's the second 20 seconds mail. And
Can I
here,
stop you for a second?
yes, sure.
I'm not sure any of you read Polish. What is interesting, the names of the kids are given the way they prefer to be called. Not like Jane, for example, but not just Anastasia, but Nastusia, which is like a nickname, which is a much more kind way to call a child, or Franya. Am I right or not?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'm
sure.
applying
Sure,
the Russian
sure.
variant. So these suffixes show that this is a nickname which is a much more, there's nothing like this in English, by the way, in this quantity of suffixes which allow people either call a person in a rude way or in a very kind way. Like I can tell you the name Tatiana can be Tanyusha, Tanichka, Tanyushka, Tatyanka, and I can go on with that, right? So yeah, this is nice. So the kids are given their names the way they want to be called, and you would never find this in a real newspaper, right? You give your name from your metrics, from your passport, from your birth certificate, but here the names are given the way they prefer to be.
Yeah. So that's their names. It's very moving for me always because it's I have association with, for example, Umschlagplatz Monument in Warsaw, because there also are many names. Yeah? However, next thing, remunerations for permanent contributors. Real money for real children and youth. Commemorative postcards. So, Ira, you'll tell yes tomorrow about postcards. Meetings with readers. Could you imagine that the editorial board, there were youth, yes, below the 18. They were like celebrities for children and youth from Poland. And to meet them was to meet a god or someone, yeah? So it was really amazing. But of course, meeting with Korczak was something really important, and he was really accessible because he met with them on each Thursday, even after his resignation in 1930. And we know some stories about it, and it was really incredible for children to meet with him. However, only from time to time it was something special, yes? Rather it was ordinary, yes, or ordinary man with beard like me, and he sometimes he told them something important, sometimes not, but it wasn't, it wasn't crucial. Next thing, offshore groups of correspondence in the cities, and that was an idea of Igor Nevery, so rather after 1930. And here you have a map from the Little Review from 1934, and that's the visualization in how many cities and in how many countries were contributors of the Little Review. Here is the pre-war Poland, much bigger than now. Yeah, here, so many cities. But here you have Palestine, and here is Uruguay, and here is Paris, and here Italy, Switzerland, the Netherlands probably, and Belgium. Yeah? So many contributors in many countries. Topics. And now I'd like to give you handouts.
This PowerPoint be on the campus?
Yeah, I'm actually
Could you?
going to ask.
Could you give them?
Would you share all
Maybe.
this PowerPoint
Please,
with
yes,
me
take one and
I'll-
it's for you.
Why,
Yes?
are you going to share this?
Yes,
PowerPoint
of course,
with me?
of course, yeah,
Then
sure.
I'll put them on campus.
Thank you, thank you. Please read especially this. I don't remember which, the second or the third. Yes, the last page. There are many topics. Please just look through them. Yeah, I expect. I'd like to show it because at the beginning, of course, Korczak had an expectation about the topics. For him, the most important, as you know, were real children's stories from their life, opinions, thoughts. That's why, and you have it also in your handouts. That's an example. The first letter to the Little Review. With mistakes. You can find in your handouts also mistake. It was translated with mistakes, and it's not, it's very conscious. Why? Okay, maybe we can read it. This year we lived in Józefów in the Hausner Villa near the station. One afternoon, it's really funny to probably for you to listen to me with mistakes in English translation from Polish. It's really crazy. Station. One afternoon when I left to wait for Daddy, an express train came from Otwock and a small dog got under his because because, I don't know. The train catched its paw, the doggy was screaming in great suffering. One of the people passing by could not look at that, so killed without, dots, and killed the dog. Us boys, we dug a hole and we buried it. Mieczysław, their Polish name, Miecio Kleinlerer. It's a real story. Very sad, but that was not exactly that. Not only about so sad experiences, but that was Korczak's expectation. However, they realized that it's impossible because children wanted something more, something different. That's why in 1927 they published a list of 200 topics, proposed topics, and some of them you can read in your handouts, and many from these topics were really present in the Little Review. Next thing, in 1931, we know that in the editor's office they had 17 briefcases. Each briefcase is one category or one topic. And let's look at it. School. It's rather obvious, yeah? Home, street, holidays, and autumn, spring, summer, no winter. Animals and birds, entertainment, young press, Palestine and Hashemers. Hashemers like Jewish scouts. Yeah? Letters of the youth, literature because that is non-fictional, non-fiction newspaper. However, from time to time, especially during the summer holidays, in Little Review were published some texts, some fiction texts. For example, Ira showed us Kajtek the Wizard, and Kajtek the Wizard, the first was it was the first time when it was published in parts in the Little Review in 1934 probably. So they had their own procedures, expectations, and it worked really great. However, without mistakes. And last thing, because I can really like this topic and I can speak about it. But last thing, I'd like to show you two initiatives which were inspired by Little Review. One is rather local, I'm in Polish. The second, global. I'm in American Polish and Italian and I don't know what else. However, that's the Mały Przegląd Little Review 2.0, yeah, like digital or something. And it was an initiative of one of the biggest and greatest Polish NGOs. And the idea was exactly the same. I was involved in the project and we published Mały Przegląd 2.0 with texts of many children from Poland, from youth centers, from schools, from immigrants centers, and it was really successful. However, it was only one issue. It was something like rather commemoration, not something more. But the second thing is the project of American artist Sharon Lockhart. Sharon Lockhart, you can, here is her website. She thought about combining Little Review with, I have to read it, with Youth Center for Social Therapy in Rudzienko. Rudzienko is a tiny place in Poland for girls. That's why you can see girls here. And she wanted to help them, from the one side, yeah, to help these girls. It was something like artistic intervention or something like this. But on the other hand, of course, she wanted to have she wanted to make an art object. That's why she made photographs and she exhibited during the Biennale in Venice in 2017. So you can find more information on her website. Okay, I think that it could be really interesting for you reading translations or Polish versions if you can, because for me that's an example that we really need to discover many new things in the Korczakian area. We know, of course, and we knew about Mały Przegląd, but the first book was published previous year, yes, so it's very significant for me. And that's also, I'm very glad that I can tell you about it. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Yeah.
Just, you didn't mention the ages of the children that
Yeah. It was difficult also for Korczak because it was possible to publish something in a little review, even if you had, for example, if you was 3 years old, because you can ask someone for write for you, and we know cases like this. For example, I have no idea how to translate it into English. I'm not prepared, but it was just like this Kleiner's, the first letter to Mały Przegląd. It was like copy of that letter, and that was letter only consisted of a few words. The thought of Boluś is, I don't know how to put it, is moving. Something like this. Yes. Only that, yeah. And that was the letter of 3 years old boy. Why? It's stupid, yeah? But it wasn't, because Korczak told and replied that, and that's something like a rule, which was also in the orphan's home, that what is important, it's my decision what is important for me, not yours, mine. So if for Boluś it was important, it really deserves to publish it. And beyond it, it's important not only for Boluś, but for many 3 years old boys and girls in Poland. So from children like this to through, I don't know, 10 years, 14 years, and teenagers to adults. Because many adults, for example, teachers, replied or responded to letters from, for example, their pupils. So, but between 26 and 30, it was rather a newspaper for children. Between 30, I mean after the replacement, between 30 and 36, it was rather a newspaper for youth because of Neverly's ideas. But after the Korczak's intervention in 1936, it was rather a newspaper for children between 36 and 39. So it was complicated, yeah.
and who were the boys, editorial boys, how it came together?
Yes. How did they work or something?
Recruited children to do that.
You mean who or how or?
Who were the kids? So how
Uh-huh.
do you get the kids to do that?
Mm, we know little about it, the reasons of why there were these kids or not other, but probably it was something like, I don't know, like in a job. Yes, someone could tell Korczak, I'd like to be part of your editorial board. Yes, please, let's come in and try. And after it, if he or she was really good, he or she could stay. Something like this, but we didn't know that better.
And it was published in Polish, not in Hebrew.
Yes, it was published in Polish. However, it was, or this experience encouraged also the, as I remember, Yiddish writers to start their own newspaper like this. I don't remember the name of this newspaper, but there was an attempt. And the second thing, that that it was published in Polish, but letters could be in Hebrew, in Yiddish, and they were translated into Polish. Yeah.
And for the financing, how did they do the finance?
It was a supplement, so we can say that it wasn't financed, but it financed rather our review, because in Fridays more copies, more money. Yes, something like this. That was the relation. But generally, of course, it was a part of our review newspaper. Yeah.